Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the challenge. Mike, please take over from here.
Thank you very much, Jesubire, for setting up this session. Welcome, everybody, from, I can say across the globe, because we have Africa here, we have Europe represented, and we are so happy to have these sessions once again. So welcome to the No Waste Challenge information session. And today we have a guest with us, Rosa, from What Design Can Do. She is going to share with us about the No Waste Challenge, and specifically focusing on the Nairobi brief. So welcome all. You can follow us on Facebook at Design Kenya Society. We are live on Facebook. And those who are here in this forum, please feel free to use the chat for any questions that you may have, and also introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. My name is Michael Muya. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm the acting Secretary General of Design Kenya Society. And I'll just give a brief introduction of Design Kenya Society before I invite my guest of today. Design Kenya Society was formed in 2010 with the aim of promoting design education, design professionalism in Kenya, design leadership and policy, also in Kenya and also in Africa. We're also looking at design and industry engagement. Like this session is focusing more on design and industry engagement. And we also have design mentorship for the young designers who are coming up in Kenya. And also we have expanded to Africa because of our partners, the Pan-African Design Institute, World Design Organization, Nairobi Design Week, among others. So feel very, very much welcome, feel at home. And these are activities that us as Design Kenya Society will look forward to in terms of engaging in, because this affects our industry. As they have always said that we design for human beings and we design for better lives. And the biggest chunk of this better life or the prospect for the future is indeed Africa. And that's why we are having these discussions to look at our profession. I know some people have blamed us for so many things, including waste that you are going to talk about today. But I'm sure from this discussion, we can look at designers as a solution to the challenges that we are having, including waste. So to take us through the Nairobi challenge of what design can do, I will welcome Rosa. She's going to introduce herself and also her team from Netherlands and take us through this session. If you have any question, you can put it on the chat. We'll ask her the questions after her presentation. Welcome, Rosa. Karibu.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the invitation. Also, very good to be here. So my name is Rosa Kieft, and I work for What Design Can Do, and I'm calling in from Amsterdam. So I prepared a presentation, and I will share my screen. And let me see. Present. So I thought maybe to start with what design can do for those that don't know about us yet. What Design Can Do is an organization that believes that design can be a tool for change. And we like to empower the global design community to work on the important issues of our times, such as the climate crisis, refugee crisis, and social justice. And we do that by empowering the design community. At least that's what we try to do through our events, but also through events and workshops, but also through our publications. And of course, oh, wait, I cannot. Oh, yeah. And of course, through our design challenges, and that's also what we're going to talk about today. And I just wanted to briefly look back at what we've done before in Nairobi and in Kenya. So about 3 years ago, we started the Clean Energy Challenge, which was also a global challenge with 5 city tracks, and one of them was Nairobi. And for the Clean Energy Challenge, we looked into the transition to cleaner energy. And this was actually the first time we actually run a challenge in Nairobi. And I wanted to share one of the outcomes of this challenge, which was focused on food waste, which is also a little bit similar to the theme that we're going to talk about today. So yeah, I wanted to share the story of one of our winners from the Clean Energy Challenge, Solar Freeze. So I'm going to try to play this video, and please let me know if anything's not working. So that was one of our winners from our previous challenge. And then for our current challenge, we started with the research a year ago, and we're kind of looking into what topics do we want to touch on. And waste was actually one of those themes where we thought, okay, what can design do for waste and consumerism? And so we launched the No Waste Challenge this January. And I think we all know that our planet is drowning in waste. Every year we dump a massive of 2 billion tons of waste on the planet. And our wasteful economies are destroying the planet. So it causes biodiversity loss, greenhouse gas emissions, the plastic, which ends up in the ocean, and also the waste of food. And we are currently stuck in this take, make, waste model, where we take from the environment, we make tossable products, and we badly distribute our waste. So we believe that we need to, and with us a lot of others, believe that we need to move towards a just and circular economy. And we believe that designers can play an important role there. We got this quote from Bruce Mau: "Design got us into this mess, now it needs to get us out of it." And during our research, we were also thinking about, okay, what is the role of designers? And they are, of course, involved in a lot of the processes where we are, for example, developing products. There's a lot of decisions to be made, but also in how we can raise awareness, for example. So we thought, designers, you need to step up. And how can we move towards a world without waste, which is a very ambitious claim, of course. So another video I wanted to share.
I was taught to design trash.
And I've designed trash.
I have been a bad designer.
But haven't we all been bad? Because at the end of the road, everything we design ends up as trash. Design turned out to be a very sufficient way to transform valuable resources into products that end up as waste.
We create tossable, discardable, very short-living products.
We're trapped in this take-make-waste model, and that needs to change. We need to work towards a society that's circular and fair.
I see design as having a responsibility in the waste cycle.
91% of all the plastic in the world is not recycled. and 30% of all our food is lost or wasted.
Waste is an idea. It's something that we invented. We can uninvent it.
So we need to design in a different way.
We need to redesign our relationship with things, with products, with service.
We need new ideas and we need them now. And that's where you come in.
Be bold, be curious, and be ambitious.
Join the No Waste Challenge.
Join the No Waste Challenge.
And get to work, because there's no time to waste.
So yeah, currently we are in the open call phase, and the deadline of the open call is the 20th of April, which is next week.
I was taught to
the No Waste Challenge is a global challenge, but we do have 6 cities tracks. So one of them is in Nairobi, but also in Amsterdam, Delhi, Mexico City, Sao Paulo, and Tokyo. And for these city tracks, we did some research, and we have local teams that are working on this topic and doing the communication and reaching out to the creative community. And also in Nairobi, we're not doing this alone, of course. We are doing the Nairobi No Waste Challenge together with KCIC, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, and of course it's supported by the IKEA Foundation and WWF, also in Kenya. So to dive a bit deeper into the design briefs that we created, we took this model of take, make, waste, and we kind of asked the question, how can we take less, make better, and handle smarter? So these are the 3 briefs that we will also ask you if you are thinking about applying to the challenge to mention, or yeah, that your project is applying to one of these briefs, or maybe it's even more than one. So for Nairobi, we located a couple of opportunities for design. So here are 3 mentioned for the take less brief. So how can we shift mindsets? For example, how can we tap into Kenyans' resourcefulness and frugality to promote a sustainable lifestyle amongst members of a growing middle class? Or for example, with plastic waste, Kenya successfully banned the use of plastic bags, but other disposable plastic remain a big problem. How can we design programs to reduce the demand of single-use plastics and address the persistent throwaway culture? And just wanted to show one example of how we can maybe diminish consumerism. This is Petit Pli, or Petit Ply. It's a textile design project from the UK, and it's actually a textile that can grow with children. So when you buy clothes for children, they grow with them. You can expand them so you don't have to throw the clothing away. For the second brief, Make Better, we again made a couple of opportunities for design. So for example, for crafts and homemade products, how might we build on these practices to grow a more sustainable production sector? And also, for example, for a growing sustainable fashion scene, how can we preserve cultural practices and stimulate material innovation? This is an example from the global brief. This actually comes from the Netherlands, which is called the Fairphone. And it's a phone that is made out of different parts that you can replace once one part breaks. So you don't have to throw away the entire phone, but you can just replace certain items, which makes the longevity of the phone way longer, of course. And then for the third brief, we have Handle Smarter. So if we do have waste, how can we dispose more responsibly? So for example, for community participation, how can we raise awareness for responsible disposal and incentivize the separation and collection of waste? Or for example, with organic waste and compost, how can we design programs, products, and services to turn organic waste into compost for urban gardens and farms? And this is a nice example from Brazil, which is a movement of waste pickers and they're being helped with their, how do you call these things, carriages, and also help them with doing their job. So it's really a community project to help waste pickers. So the design opportunities are a few things that we listed. Of course, if you have other ideas, we're also welcoming that. It's just to kind of give you direction of what you could work on. And then about what we are looking for, just to go very practical, I thought I could share our submission form in order to show you what we're asking once you're making a profile and once you decide to make a submission. And I will run through it briefly. Of course, we ask for a project title, a project description, and we ask for images of your project, and preferably, if you have it, also a video. And next, we'll ask you to answer a couple of questions. So to what of the briefs are you responding to with your projects? Is your project for the global challenge, or is it responding to one of the cities? And also we ask you to your connection to the city. We'll ask you to what R strategy your project applies. So for example, is it about refusing waste? Is it about rethinking, reducing, repairing? And we'll ask you to take one of the boxes of the design category of your projects. So that can either be communications, and then you can think about information design, but also campaigns or a film, for example. Is it product design? And it can also be food design, fashion, textiles, sustainable materials. The third one is spaces. So is it more about spatial design? Is it maybe architecture? And the last one is about service and systems. So is it maybe a digital tool, an app, a website, or anything else? Then the next question is that we'll ask about the stage of your stage of development of your project. So is it a first idea? Is it in a sketch stage? Is it an idea stage? That's the first one. The second one is testing stage. So maybe you already had your idea, but you're working on it. You maybe have a first prototype and you're looking into testing your project. Or is it the third option? Is it evolve? And that means that you've already been working on your project for a while. Maybe you already have a company and you're looking into further develop your project. And the reason that we ask this is that the winners of the No Waste Challenge will receive 10,000 euros in funding of their project, but also they will receive a spot in the development program where we will work together with you for 1 year on developing your project. And we do that together with Impact Hub and KCIC, of course. So the next question is about what type of waste you're addressing. So is it plastic, is it food, textiles? Finally, where are you located if it's not specified yet? And we'll also ask you with who you are working together. And then we'll go into the criteria. So we have 4 criteria that we will use when we are judging projects. The first one is impact. So how's your project impacting, or actually how do you reduce the greenhouse gases? So can you explain to us how it helps the world in that sense? Of course, creativity and design is an important item for us because we want to it's a design challenge in the end, so we're looking for inspiring ideas. The third one is feasible. So is your project feasible and how are you going to do it? And the last one is scalable. So is it not only for your own community maybe, but is it something that we can develop also in other places in the world? Yeah, and these last 4 questions are also for the jury to look at. So these are important things for you to think about. So does the initiative reduce or even eliminate harmful waste? Does it turn waste into a new valuable resource? Does it preserve or even regenerate biodiversity and habitat that is currently threatened by waste? Does it extend the life of goods? And does it promote mindful consumption? These are all things to keep in mind when you are explaining your project to us. And then also, for now, I thought maybe it would be good to go into what makes an outstanding application and what are we really looking for when we are looking at applications. So first of all, we thought maybe it's good to keep in mind who your audience is, and that is the selection committee and the international jury. So first of all the projects for Nairobi will be judged by the selection committee in Nairobi, and that will consist of business experts, topic experts, and design experts. And then once we've announce the nominees, it will go to the international jury and they will finally pick the winners. And here are a few tips from us. So be specific and concrete. So what is it? For whom is it? Who are the users and who will benefit from it? How is it used? How does it work? And what problem does it solve? So for us, it's really important to understand this narrative and why you are doing this. These are already tips and tricks, but yeah, and more practically, we recommend to create a catchy and short title, write a clear description of your product or service, use images to illustrate your story, add a compelling video if you have it, and explain how you fit the criteria. So the video is a great tool to explain your idea and also to introduce yourself to the jury. For us, it's really, or for the jury, it's really interesting to see who's behind the project. And if you can explain, for example, your project in a video, it already creates a very good impression of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you're thinking about creating a video, you can keep this in mind. So why are you doing, why did you create your project? What is it? And how will it work? So images, as I said before, are quite important because in the end, it is a design competition and images illustrate and amplify your story. So it can be either images of a prototype or product, it can be a mock-up, it can be a data visualization, or it can be a team photo even. We like as many images as possible and also the highest resolution if possible. So that can be pictures, drawings, sketches, collages. And here are a few examples of nice images that were used for projects that we received before. So this is Mvuko Fresh, and they were actually also one of the winners of the Clean Energy Challenge in 2019. So it has a very clear visual of what the product is and what it does. And the next image tells us about the material and what it will consist of, where it will be used. So it tells the story of the project very well, we believe. And this is another example. This was Beehive, which was an initiative from India. And it's actually ceramics that cool the air around it. And we really like these photos because it shows that, you know, how the installation will look like and where it can be placed and also how it works with the water. But also this image was very helpful because it shows that it cools the air that comes here out of the air conditioning. And the team photo, which is really nice to get an impression of who's behind the project. So yeah, for now, maybe we can go into some of the questions that you might have about the Nairobi Challenge and about applying if you're thinking about it, about applications. And yeah, thank you for having me and listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Rosa, for that presentation. I think it is well detailed. Thank you. Precise. We are seeing the design quality in terms of imagery, video, and which is key also in the presentation of the challenge. So there's a question on the chat that's from Chesubire. She's asking, since not all the participants are from Nairobi, how do those from outside Kenya submit their works and get evaluated? I think this is a question also that I've been asked so many times because, as I said, we are a continent, yes, but most of the design things revolve around Nairobi. So what about the others, people from the other country? Can they apply for this Nairobi challenge?
Yes, so the way you can see it is it's a global challenge and everyone from everywhere can participate. But we decided to focus on these cities because we believe that if we want to create change, it's really good to focus on certain cities. So what I would say is that if your idea is for Nairobi or for Kenya, I would go for the Nairobi track. If you have an idea for a different country, different place, then I would go for the global track, actually. And the reason is that we don't want to close the Nairobi challenge for other people from other countries, but I think it's really important that you can show a connection to the city or to Kenya. So, for example, have you been working there before? Do you have partners there? Is your research based on things that are happening there? Then I would really advise you to apply for the Nairobi challenge. If not, I would say go for the global challenge.
Okay, thank you. Those in this chat, you can, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand, and then we'll allow you to ask your question directly to Rosa or inquire on something. Another question that we were being asked or that was coming out is the issue on waste, because from the brief, it's focusing on plastic and food waste. Are we also looking at other waste?
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up also when we were doing the research in Nairobi is electronic waste, which is a growing problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the, so it's plastic, food, and electronic waste, I think, that we kind of pinpointed for Nairobi. So I think we would be very happy if we can receive projects on these topics.
Okay.
It would be,
thank you. The other question that came out was on the disciplines. Is it only for designers, or it can also spread out to other disciplines?
Yeah, I think it depends on how you see design and what designers, who designers are. We have, in general, a very broad approach to design. So maybe traditionally you would think more about product design or maybe interior design or something like that. But for us, it's really very broad. So it can mean if you are a graphic designer, you can work on a campaign, for example, but you can also maybe be someone who makes videos, as I mentioned before. We also accept those kind of projects. So it's maybe more creatives in general that we invite to participate to the challenge. Also things like surface design or system design are maybe not things that you traditionally would see as a design product, but we are actually very open in receiving those types of products or ideas as well. And yeah, I think in the end, what we'll do if you win the challenge, we'll look at how we can help you. So for example, if you're not a designer yourself, but you have an idea and you're actually looking for assistance in design, that's also one way to present your project. And then we can, when you win, we can step in and help you with that. So we can make sure that you can develop your design element of your project. So it can be, I think, yeah, for us, design can be many, many things, many different things. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, that answers the question. I would like to ask Chesubire if there are any questions from the Facebook, or inquiries.
None currently.
Okay. Then I have one more question for Rosa. The issue of copyrights and patents. You know, when I submit my idea, do I have to copyright it before I submit, or how does what design can do go in that direction in terms of copyrights and patents?
Yeah, very, very good question. Actually, the copyright and the intellectual property stays with the participant. So the project submitter, we have no interest in that. We only want to help develop. So that all stays with the project submitter. And in terms of copyright, you can submit a project and keep it private. So it will only be showed to the jury or the selection committee. So you don't have to publish your idea on our platform. Of course, we prefer that because we want to share, you know, all the wonderful projects that are coming in. But if you don't feel comfortable, you can actually keep your project private and just show it to the selection committee. And the funding money is really up to the winner to invest in their project. So that's also quite, you know, it's up to you to decide what would be best for your project. So that is also not something that we have an interest in formally.
Okay, thank you very much. I would ask in the people in the room that if anybody has a question, you can go ask and ask.
Not yet. But and I'm also curious, Michael, how if we're talking about different kinds of design and what this design can be, what is your view actually on that? How do you regard that in terms of this challenge and waste and what possible solutions could be?
I view my area of design is a bit of like a community participation kind of approach, and to me it cuts across so many things, because I believe some solutions are design driven. There are some solutions that does not need the designer; it only needs their input, because some solutions are social based. Some solutions are community-based. The way I would look at it is that even what has been given in your brief is that you should consult with the experts around your community and see some of their input in terms of the challenge that you're putting forward. So even if you're a designer, you still need to consult with the community, bring a participation kind of group so that you can achieve what I can call more impact than just being a design solution. That's my approach. So I would pull in an interior designer, a graphic designer, a lady who is doing business, you know, in whichever way. There's a community leader involved, also in terms of policy and like that. So it works like a whole bunch of people who are using just a bit of creativity or design thinking to solve a problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. And maybe even I was also thinking that, of course, usually we are thinking about human-centered design, but I think also one of the things that came up with developing the briefs, how can we also ask people to do a more like earth-centered design? Yeah. So not only the community and people, but also taking consideration what you're putting out there in the world in terms of materials or yeah, anything really.
All right. I'm seeing Zablon is in the group. Zablon.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. Zablon has been working a lot with circular economy. He also works with the IDEO. So what is your input in terms of this challenge? Experience from Nairobi.
Mike?
Yes.
I don't work with IDEO, the organization, but I do a lot of work with, I used to volunteer for them. So, yeah, but in terms of human-centered design and social impact programs. So in terms of, what is out there and, toolkits that people can tap from, I'd suggest you check out the Ellen MacArthur circular design guide. It's a really good toolkit for you to open up in terms of just materials, how you do, stakeholder configurations and things like that. They have really good things in terms of, stakeholder buy-in is really big, because some of these concepts might go counter to what the economics of the surface are. For instance, currently in the country, we're really pushing for value addition, and most of the graphic designers in our context are looking at designing packaging, and how do we encourage buy-in in such a context where we have a huge demand for packaging, but at the same time we are looking at maybe delivery methods that might go counter to that. So there are so many tools that we can look at. For instance, also, Mike, you are familiar with product service systems.
Yeah.
So this is also a toolkit that can come in really handy in terms of where we can look for methods to execute some of those solutions.
Thank you. I knew you had a lot of knowledge in this area, and thank you very much. Just one more question from me to Rosa. There's this issue of, when you talk about plastic, are we recycling, or are we focusing on plastic elimination, or are we reusing and recycling? Which one is better for us, and which one is better for the earth?
I think if we're ambitious, we're talking about elimination. But that's, of course, easier said than done, also because it's it's part of our lives in such a big way and with so many things. And it can also, for example, make produce stay fresh for a longer period. So it's always such a difficult consideration, if you should really eliminate it, which is, I think, if you're talking about a global, if you have a global view, that's what we should want. But I think it's very difficult to also be able to execute that. But I think also with the plastic bags ban, for example, it's already such a great step in avoiding to use it in daily life. So, there's a lot of different levels, I believe, that we can approach it.
Thank you. Chesubira, you have anything to add or comment?
I just think it's a very fascinating challenge because it gives us pause for thought. We so often, I remember the video in the beginning that says we seem to be designing for waste because we're designing products for short-term use, and that really caught my attention because that's stuff like the single-use plastics, right? So then the question I have no answers right now, but the question in my mind is, how do we then take that to the next level and ensure that every interaction we have with, whether it's creating or using or adapting something, how do we transform it into a format that becomes no waste? So it's not no waste challenge, it's no waste for life, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the thoughts going through my mind, because just that statement of we are generating a lot of waste as designers just by how we design. And the second thing I'm thinking about is the whole mental concept behind it, because there has to be a mind shift if we're going to eliminate waste. there has to be mind shifts around trends, around how long trends last, what comes across, because I mean, in the West, they have seasons, summer, winter, spring, whatever. Here we have rain and sun, right? So how do we then adapt our lives into those spaces? How do we reduce? How do we encourage people to repurpose? So I like the whole thought process of reduce, reuse. So my mind is just racing and trying to figure out, okay, how do we capture all these angles and ensure that we do them well, not just from a global perspective, but because we've been talking about African design and the impact of design on the African continent, how do we do things that take and localize for use? How do we answer the question of, like we moved from the single-use plastics, but we have all these now, what they call non-woven bags. What can we do with them for the women in the village? How can we repurpose them for the guys who are by the rivers, so that we don't end up with this stuff in the rivers? So that's just where my mind is at. How do we localize this for the African people, the woman in the village, as opposed to just concentrating on the woman in Nairobi, the man in Nairobi? How do we use what we know for the woman in the village, the man in the village, the old man who can barely leave his compound? Yeah, that's where my mind is at.
Okay. Thank you very much. They told us designers got us into this mess, so it's designers who are going to deliver us.
Yeah. Well, I agree that it can be. It's a very overwhelming topic, and it's almost like where to begin. It's yeah, it can be very overwhelming. But while you were saying that, I was also thinking that, of course, one of the things that we can do is maybe change the mindset and change awareness. And again, that's also a role that a designer can take upon, because as designers, you communicate and you tell narratives and you create a campaign or. Yeah, so again, then I would say maybe we should also, that's also one part, of course, which is more, how can we take less? It's also how can we consume less, and how can we, make sure that that is something that is, accepted also in society, and an idea that we get used to. And again, that's a communication problem as well, or challenge, not a problem. Challenge.
So wait a minute. So we could actually it's possible to do a communication concept around for the challenge?
Well, I think maybe it's more about how can we help people to understand that we need to consume less. So yeah, I think there is a lot of stories that we can tell, and then maybe also this challenge that we're doing with What Design Can Do is also, of course, we're hoping for very practical solutions and things that we can execute in the end, but also it's also telling the story about waste and how we need to change our mindsets. At the same time.
Just to add on that, there is a category called communications. Huh?
Yeah.
And the category involves information design, speculative design, campaigns, packaging design, films, music, verbal or non-verbal. I think this is where our young people can really come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they call it verbal, non-verbal messages, digital or physical. Yeah. So there's actually a category on that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And sometimes it's maybe even just, it can also be information design. So with visualizations, infographics, for us to understand what's going on, because sometimes the files on all these topics are very, intense and they go, the research that there is so also overwhelming. And that's maybe also like a translation that a designer can make through visuals, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can do memes.
Yes, yeah, what you want.
Because that now opens it up, and you can actually see places to engage for our 3D teams. It makes it more more engaging for different layers, because then the animators can come in, the 2D, the 3D. So it broadens the scope of the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I like that.
maybe we, for the sake of our listeners, I can go through the categories, right?
Please do.
So there is communication, which I've said is information design, speculative design, campaigns, packaging design, films, music, verbal and non-verbal messages, digital or physical. This is just a summary. You can check it out on the website. Then the other category is product, and they're looking at sustainable product design. They're looking at fashion design, food design, material design. And this one, they're looking at industrial made material, and also other limited editions, like what we do here in Kenya, which is in terms of craft. The third category is services and systems. This is what Zablon was talking about, the sustainable service system or product service system. So we have digital and physical tools. We have services, we have platforms, we have programs, we have infrastructure. All that to include influence on human behavior and facilitate interactions. That's under service and systems. The last category is spaces. This one Rosa was giving an example of. We have interior design, architecture, landscape design, other special designs for private or public sector, temporary or permanent. So those are the categories.
Yeah. And for example, if you think about spaces, because maybe that's not not something that you relate immediately with waste, but you can think, for example, about the collection points for waste. How should they be designed? Or architecture is sometimes also very wasteful. So how should we change architecture that is not wasteful? So these are all things that you could think about and that are important. Yeah.
So I think, Chespira, I'm done in terms of questions and presentation, unless somebody has anything to say. But these are a very interesting discussion.
Yeah. And maybe also good to mention is that all the information that I also shared in my presentation is, of course, also on our website. So you'll be able to find everything also that I just told, and also read a bit more about the research that we did for Nairobi and the design opportunities that we created.
I'll just share the website on the side chat.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody in the audience who'd like to ask a question or add to the conversation before we call it to a close?
There's a student in the group, so he can ask on behalf of the students.
Okay, who is the student? Point them out.
George Owiso.
George Owiso, I thought so.
George,
Chair. I don't have question really, but I've learned a lot. I was listening. I'm at my attachment place. I was just listening, but I've learned a lot. Thanks for the panelists. And we are looking forward to maybe I can say changing our ways of maybe using materials, doing the recycling waste, and yeah, considering human centered design. So yeah, basically that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
All right. Anybody else who would like to say something? Alison, I think so.
What is it? I'll jump in just to say hello and thank you so much for having us. This was great. Yeah, it's so nice to connect with you and your community and all your students. So we had a really good time.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. I'll share in the chat and comment as well an email address in case anybody has any questions after this session. You're also welcome to reach out to us anytime.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alison.
Yeah, thank you.
Josefina.
So I'll say thank you to everybody who has honored our invitation to come and learn today. As you know, we have live streamed it to Facebook. We'll also put it up on our YouTube channel in the course of the next few hours. I hope that from this session you have found something useful, and it will help streamline as you prepare to submit your application to the challenge. Feel free to think wide. I'm really excited to see that there's space for communication design. That's really my interest. And here's to more engagements. We shall be back in the next couple of weeks with information about our next event. But we do have some upcoming ones with the Pan-Africa Design Institute, and we'll keep talking about the No Waste Challenge. And it's so good to be working with what design can do. And I think with that, and with Mike's permission, we shall call the session to a close, and we will see you again at our next session. Thank you for being with us, and to our Facebook audience, thank you for checking in. We shall be back with our next session soon. Have a good afternoon.